Can you keep your beef fresh for centuries without refrigerators? It sounds almost impossible, right? But the answer lies in time-tested traditions that blend faith with practicality. In Jewish culture, preserving meat isn't just about storage. It's a sacred process. Through salting and soaking, blood is drawn out, keeping meat kosher while extending its shelf life. Kosher meat laws, part of the Jewish dietary code known as kashrut, have been followed for thousands of years. These laws dictate not just only which animals can be eaten, but also how they must be slaughtered and prepared. To be considered kosher, meat must come from specific animals such as cows, sheep, goats that chew their cud and have split hooves. However, the process doesn't stop there. One of the most critical aspects of kosher meat preparation is the removal of blood. In Jewish law, consuming blood is strictly forbidden based on the Torah's commandment that the life of the flesh is in the blood. This is why kosher meat undergoes a specific purification process to ensure all traces of blood are removed before consumption. The koshering process involves three main steps like soaking, salting, and rinsing. First, the meat is soaked in water for about 30 minutes to open its pores. Then, it is generously coated with kosher salt, which draws out the remaining blood. The salted meat is left to sit for an hour before being thoroughly rinsed multiple times to remove any remaining salt and blood. Some cuts of meat like liver require direct roasting since salting alone isn't sufficient for blood removal. Join us by liking, and subscribing would be a wonderful way to dive deeper into such intriguing topics. Now, these meticulous steps ensure the meat is prepared according to Jewish law, making it fit for consumption. While rooted in religious traditions, kosher meat laws have also influenced modern food safety and ethical slaughter practices, highlighting the deep historical and cultural significance of these dietary rules. Before the invention of refrigeration, preserving meat was a constant challenge. Fresh meat spoils quickly, especially in warm climates, forcing civilizations to develop creative solutions to extend its shelf life. Without modern technology, people have had to rely on natural preservatives like salt, smoke, and drying techniques to keep food from going bad. Among these methods, salt became the most widely used and reliable preservative. It worked by drawing out moisture from the meat, preventing bacteria from thriving. Across different cultures from the Egyptians to the Romans, salt was considered essential for food storage, trade, and even religious rituals. Jewish communities living in diverse regions with varying climates adopted these practices while adhering to the strict dietary laws outlined in the Torah. For Jewish people, the need to preserve meat was not just practical, but also deeply tied to religious observances. The laws of kashrut directed that all blood must be removed from the meat before consumption, aligning perfectly with the effectiveness of salt in drawing out fluids. This method became not only a preservation technique, but also a fundamental part of kosher law. Jewish households would salt their meat not just to keep it from spoiling, but also to ensure it was fit to eat according to their faith. Religious traditions like the Shabbat and Passover further influenced how meat was prepared and stored. Cooking was forbidden on the Shabbat, meaning meals had to be prepared in advance, often requiring preserved foods. Similarly, during Passover, specific dietary restrictions meant that preserving kosher meat correctly was essential to maintaining religious purity. In this way, preservation methods were seamlessly woven into daily Jewish life, ensuring food remained both edible and ritually acceptable. Salt wasn't just an ancient necessity. It's still a crucial part of kosher meat preparation today. But why salt? Because it's a natural purifier, pulling out blood and preventing spoilage, making it perfect for both religious and practical purposes. In Jewish law, consuming blood is strictly forbidden, so salt became the ideal solution to remove it while also extending the meat's shelf life. But think about it. Doesn't that sound crazy? A simple mineral, something we casually sprinkle on fries, has been a key player in food preservation and religious traditions for centuries. The process itself is meticulous, First, the meat is soaked in cold water for about 30 minutes. This softens it up and opens the pores, preparing the salt to do its job. Then, the meat is completely covered in kosher salt, making sure every surface is coated. The salt immediately starts drawing out any remaining blood, following a method that has been passed down for generations. After that, the meat is left to rest for an hour on a slanted surface, allowing the blood to drain away naturally. Imagine that something as simple as angling the meat ensures it follows religious laws. Finally, the meat is rinsed multiple times to remove excess salt, leaving it completely kosher and ready to cook. Even with refrigeration, many Jewish households continue this practice till today. But why go through all of this when modern technology could do the job? Well, it's not just about keeping food fresh, as you can understand. It's about maintaining tradition, identity, and faith. And when something has lasted for thousands of years, that's gotta be a good reason for that, don't you think? Food in Jewish culture isn't just about sustenance. It's deeply tied to faith, tradition, and identity. Keeping kosher isn't just a dietary choice. It's a religious commitment that has been passed down for generations. The meticulous process of preparing kosher meat, including salting and drying, is more than a method of preservation. It's a spiritual act, ensuring adherence to biblical commandments. But doesn't that sound crazy? A simple act like salting meat carries the weight of history, faith, and cultural survival. This connection becomes even more evident during the Sabbath and Jewish holidays. Observant Jews refrain from cooking on the Sabbath, which means food must be prepared in advance. Cooking meat through salting allows it to be stored safely, ensuring that families have meals ready while still adhering to religious laws. The same applies to major holidays like Passover, where strict dietary laws further emphasize the importance of proper food preparation. These practices aren't just about following rules. They're about preserving a way of life that has endured for thousands of years. But how does this tradition hold up in the modern world? With refrigeration and advanced food storage methods, some might think koshering meat through salting is outdated. Yet many Jewish families continue to practice, blending tradition with modern convenience. Some do it out of religious devotion, while others find comfort in maintaining the customs of their ancestors. Well, it's a way of staying connected to the past while adapting to the present. After all, if something has been practiced for centuries, there must be a reason why it still matters. Beyond religious significance, salting and drying meat has been one of the most effective preservation methods throughout history. Before refrigeration, this was the only way to keep meat from spoiling, especially in warmer climates. Kosher methods ensured that meat could last for weeks without refrigeration, making it a reliable food source in times of scarcity. But here's something interesting. Doesn't that sound like an ancient version of modern food preservation? Even today, cured meats like jerky and salted fish are enjoyed throughout the world. Many cultures, from the Vikings to the Chinese, relied on salt preservation, just like how the Jewish communities did. It wasn't just about religious laws. It was about survival, efficiency, and practicality. And when a tradition is both practical and meaningful, it's no surprise that it stood the test of time. There are plenty of misconceptions when it comes to kosher meat preservation, especially when people assume that refrigeration is only the way to keep meat fresh. One common myth is that kosher meat must always be refrigerated to remain edible. Doesn't that sound a bit off? Considering these practices existed long before modern technology, in reality, Jewish communities preserved meat for centuries without cooling, using time-tested methods like salting and drying. Another misunderstanding is that the koshering process, soaking, salting, and rinsing, is only for religious purposes. While it is a fundamental part of Jewish dietary law, it also serves a very practical function. The process draws out moisture and prevents bacterial growth, which naturally extends the shelf life of the meat. In fact, before refrigeration, this was one of the most reliable ways to keep meat safe to eat. But let's clarify something. Just because Jewish people historically preserved meat without refrigeration doesn't mean they reject modern cooling methods. Today, kosher meat is stored in refrigerators like any other meat, but the traditional methods remain relevant for those who want to follow religious customs or enjoy the added benefits of preservation. After all, if something has worked for thousands of years, why stop now? The practice of salting and soaking beef isn't just about following religious laws. It's a tradition deeply rooted in both faith and practicality. For centuries, Jewish communities used these methods to preserve meat, ensuring it remained kosher and safe to eat long before refrigeration existed. Doesn't that prove how brilliantly tradition and necessity can work together? Even in today's modern world, where refrigeration is the norm, these ancient practices still hold meaning. Whether for religious observance, cultural identity, or historical continuity, kosher meat preparation remains an integral part of Jewish life. It's a testament to how traditions can evolve while still honoring their origins. At the heart of it all, kosher practices represent more than just food preparation. They symbolize the balance between faith, tradition, and adaptation. And that's why, despite the passage of time, they continue to sustain Jewish communities across generations. Like and share if you found this exploration of Jewish meat preservation fascinating. If you're curious about how the Jewish people can assemble furniture in just hours, check out our video, The Real Reason Jewish People Build Furniture in 1 Hour. Then don't forget to subscribe for more captivating stories.